Hey guys, I'm Usually Dave from the Digital Soup Podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at gonnageek.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is the official gonnageek.com show. Here we're a bunch of geeks talking about geeky things. Each week we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven.
But what if I'm in the mood for a T-Swift story?
Chris.
I've heard the X is going to give it to you.
And SP.
That's how we roll on Gonna Geek on Monday night. We get crazy!
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official gonnageek.com show.
Hello and welcome to episode 227 of the official gonnageek.com show. My name is Steven John Drew, and with me is the full crew, which includes Chris Farrell.
I'm pretty sure the chat room just told me Steven's pants are fake news.
We also have, of course, with us, the not fake Stargate Pioneer.
USA, 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 USA,
So are you getting up for the game at 3 a.m. Eastern, SP?
Okay, here's a true story. I woke up in the middle of the night, Sunday morning, just for no reason whatsoever at 2:30 a.m. I'm like, I gotta get back to sleep. So I turned the TV on, and what was on? Women's hockey! Yay! USA versus Finland, which they won 2-1. So yes, I did get up in the middle of the night unintentionally and watch hockey.
Yeah, but are you doing it tonight? Because the men's team plays at 3 a.m. Eastern this tonight.
No. The women play at 7 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, and the men play Wednesday.
I thought they were playing this morning. Oh, I don't know. I can't keep track of it. I only care about curling in the Olympics, guys. That's all I've been watching. I still don't understand it all the way.
Sucks at curling.
Hard!
I'm just trying to understand curling, and I'm gradually beginning to understand it a little bit. And then something weird happens, and I go, "Oh crap! I thought I understood what was happening." But
you would be an
enthralled
awesome curler because you're like 8 feet 5 inches. You have awesome reach. You'd be just a natural curler, and because the USA curlers suck so hard, you have a great chance of making the Olympic team in 4 years.
So true story. When I was in high school, I did this internship type thing with a local. Well, it wasn't local, but it was a broadcaster that was covering the junior national championship for the entire week. Yeah, I had no clue what was going on. I had no idea, but I figured it out eventually. You're there for a week. You eventually figure out what's going on. But yeah, that was interesting.
Wait a minute. You're Canadian and you didn't know what hockey was?
What curling was. Curling.
Oh, junior.
Curling.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Curling has juniors?
They did. I don't think they do anymore, but they did
Steven,
at the time.
The better question is, how were you not inspired to start becoming a curler when you experienced that? You could be curling right now. You could be on Team Canada in beautiful, wonderful South Korea in the middle of February right now, winning a medal for your country.
So yes, as Chris was saying, we are here to talk about the latest happenings in the world of geek. So if you've never checked out the show before, we are not an Olympic event by any means. So unfortunately, there is no speed skating here, there is no ice dancing, and there is only hot tub enjoyment.
Wait. On Twitter, you promised a figure skating skate-off between SP and I tonight. So when is this happening?
I promise a lot of things that I don't deliver on, so there you go.
So what you're saying is you are going to disappoint the fans of the gonnageek.com show by not hosting a figure skating skate-off between one Stargate Pioneer and Chris Farrell.
Again, like I say, I promise a lot of things that I don't deliver on, and you can just ask my wife about that. So there you go.
Hey, Chris, I got one word for you. Topic.
All right, well, let's go ahead and roll into the news. So this first news point was very surprising for me to see. I had no idea that there was apparently a plethora of problems with the Pixel 1. Yes, today I'm talking about alleged problems with the Pixel 1. This is something that apparently happened so much so that there is now a class action lawsuit. This was filed this past week by Patricia Weeks and Waleed Anbar. It's a 7-count class action lawsuit against Google for the faulty Pixel and Pixel XL smartphones. They're demanding $5 million. The law firm of Gerard Gibbs, who filed this lawsuit on behalf of the plaintiffs, is rumored to now be preparing a second class action lawsuit for the Pixel 2. So this stems out of apparently Google mishandling problems, allegedly, of the original Pixel 1 and Pixel 2. There was apparently some defective Pixel phones, and what ended up happening was there was problems with the microphone and the speakers, and when Google got those back, sometimes they accidentally shipped out also broken versions that had the same problem. So this is something that it's coming out like nearly a year and a half later after the debut of the Pixel 1. So it's surprising for me to see. But if you did have problems with this, you might want to pay attention to this, because we all know how class action lawsuits go, right? So you might want to pay attention to that. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Pixel 2 problems, because as we all know, the Pixel 2 XL has a lot more problems. So there you go.
You'll end up with 23 cents and a popsicle.
Yeah. Chris, I know that you have been an avid Android follower like myself, and you've looked before at the Pixel when it came out, and you looked at the Pixel 2. Had you heard about this problem with the Pixel 1?
I had. It had popped up on the Pixel Reddits. It had also popped up on some of the tech blogs I read from time to time, but it was not as big a deal as or not as blown up as the concerns over the Pixel 2 screen. Yes, it was happening, but credit to the Google support team. I mean, if you said you had that problem, it was basically like, okay, we're going to RMA your phone and send you a new one, send us the old one as soon as it happens. So while it's inconvenient that this was happening with some of the phones, they were pretty responsive from everything I can tell to replacing those phones. It's part of the reason why if I buy a Pixel phone, I'm going to buy direct from Google again in the future, because the support level has been fantastic. Despite the hardware issues there might have been, they stand by the product. So while it's a pain in the butt that these problems happened, I think it got overblown a little bit.
I'm surprised that a lawyer is taking on an overblown problem. I am completely shocked.
I mean, it's not like the phone's battery exploded and caught fire or anything.
You don't know. You don't know. They could have paid those owners off to not say anything about it.
You mean taking the Apple approach?
Allegedly. Allegedly. So this whole Google Pixel thing, yeah, it's great, but the customer service was a little substandard, because if they shipped out broken phones or phones that had come in for RMA as replacements, that's not good.
I have no problem with them shipping out a refurbished phone as a replacement, because because a phone that has had some wear on it is a used phone. So they're replacing a used phone with a used phone. If it's correctly done. In this situation, it sounds like it was not. So that's where I have a problem.
Just grab one from the broken pile and you send it back out.
Well, you know what they say, fight fire with fire, right? So fight broken speakers with broken speakers.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, but in all seriousness, the thing I did learn is I have an Nexus 6P, which is notorious for having battery issues when it hits the 2-year mark. If you bought it from Google, you could complain to Google, and for a while there, they were replacing them not with Nexus 6Ps, but with Pixel XLs. If you had a problem and you reached out to Huawei, Huawei basically just told you to pound sand, or said, you can pay us $250 and we'll try and fix it, something like that. So, yes, accidents are going to happen. There's going to be customer service misfires, for lack of a better term, but I would wager most people that sent their phone back and got it replaced got a working one at some point, be it the first try or the second try.
No, I agree. I think Google has overall, in my opinion, taken a good approach to customer service. I've heard that sort of story before where they've upgraded people, and they really have to, because as much as I love my Pixel phone, the reality is that there are other Android phones for the same price that have more features. So, they have to deliver somehow, and they're still trying to break into that market. The Pixel is still not a mainstream name as far as I'm concerned. To geeks, it is now. But for the mainstream users, they probably still go, oh, an Android phone, and they think of a Samsung.
Let's be honest. The Pixel's a niche product, guys. It's not huge out there. Fanboys like it, and Verizon folks who can buy direct from Verizon have heard of it. Other than that, it's like, The what phone? What are you talking about? Is that the new Android from Samsung? Who knows?
Yeah.
Here's where Google fails because, you just say the name of a product and then all of a sudden it comes in all your advertisements, right? Well, they should extend that to their product. Dang, what's going on with this phone? Boom, they should ship one out to you so you can send your old one back just right then. It should just happen that fast. You should get it delivered to you by a drone, and then you could send the other one back with a drone, and it's all good. See, Google needs to step it up. They already know your lives. They should know when their product's breaking.
Well, Google's not going to use the drone. That's an Amazon thing, but they'll send a Waymo self-driving car to your house with a new Pixel in the front seat for you just to grab and put your old Pixel in the place of. I think that's where we're going with Google.
They're going to Johnny Cab it.
Yeah, assuming their lawsuit against Uber pans out. We'll see what happens there.
All right, so there's your Pixel news for the week. We're going to move on to a very short little news point here. There's not been a lot of stuff that's happened in the world of space this past week, but he's reaching, he's grasping at straws, so he's got a couple of headlines he's going to run because really it's been a very boring week within space.
Very, very boring. Look, there's a lot to talk about, so I'm only going to go headline deep into everything. As you know,
you said deep.
Yeah, I did, like deep space. So the last week's show, I mentioned that SpaceX the next day was scheduled to launch their Falcon Heavy rocket, which is basically just a Falcon 9 on steroids because you add a couple more boosters to it. And Elon Musk had said it would be a success if it just lit the rockets and it made it off the pad for 2 seconds before it exploded. Well, guess what? It did more than that. It actually launched as a spectacular spectacle. 2 boosters came down in synchronization and landed on their pads. Of course, the main core is lost. Nobody has seen it since that last shot of the drone ship, which was just a bunch of smoke. But it worked. It worked, and it sent a car into space, a Tesla Roadster into space. So yeah, this was all great. They streamed it on YouTube. It is still available on SpaceX's YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and watch the entire, I think, 35 minutes launch right up till when the core comes down. And it was great. It warmed the hearts and minds of everybody that wants to advance space travel. Now, is it the best thing ever since sliced spread? No, it's not, because CNN actually ran an article of comparing all the boosters in the world. It's not that special. It really not. It's good. It can compete with the big boosters of others like the Ariane 5, like the Titan 4, that sort of thing. But it's no Saturn 5. It's just not. But that's okay, because Elon Musk is building the big Falcon rocket, the BFR, and that is going to be crewed. Matter of fact, he's so advanced in it, he said that, so we're not going to do any crewed missions with the Falcon Heavy. We're just going to go to the BFR. So that's going to be good. They're going to do that, and it's just amazing. Now, Starman, we got to talk about Starman. Those were some spectacular photos of a guy just cruising around orbit with his arm up on the Roadster thing. He had a little toy car on the dashboard, which we'll get to in a second.
I got to stop you here because you just let out a NASA secret. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, you should definitely go and Google it, because what it allegedly was sent into space a Tesla with a dummy in it wearing one of the newest SpaceX things. Now, as we all know, the reality is that it was a dead body. It was the perfect cover up to a murder. So we're pretty sure that that's what it was. And the director of NASA just said that guy. He didn't say that dummy. He said that guy. So clearly it was indeed a murder cover up. And I want to know, was it your murder or was it Elon's murder? I know it was one of you two that committed it, but just go ahead and come clean now.
So while Steven's peddling conspiracy theories, I'm getting off screen.
This is all I'm going to say is the dummy was in the trunk. So this is an untested vehicle for space. So scientists have basically said, yeah, the car is going to come apart due to space radiation and micrometeor impacts within a year. I could definitely see that. Now, will it just come apart and not, well, be around each other? No, they're going to, the little parts will orbit each other in the same orbit around the sun. So they'll be close by. So the thing will slowly come apart. It's not like it's going to explode or anything. So it's just like be all one big junk mass as it's orbiting around at some point in time. Unfortunately, the camera and the transmitter will stop working because there's no electricity on board to run it anymore. So we won't actually see it unless we send something up there to see it. So that's cool. This is not it, though. So Sierra Nevada Corporation, the day after the launch, was like, ooh, us too. We got a cool thing going. Yes, their Dream Chaser actually got approval for their first ISS cargo mission. So they're saying they're in the game. So wait for more information about that. And let's talk about some of the payloads. I already mentioned the Hot Wheels car, which, by the way, it sells for like $150. Guess what? It's going for $150 now. I wanted one. I'm not going to pay $150 for the car. So a Hot Wheels car with the little Starman was on the dashboard. Also, they tweeted, I think it was Elon Musk, tweeted a little picture of made by humans on the circuit board that was printed on one of the Tesla circuit boards. So that's pretty cool. And then, did you guys hear about the Arch?
No, I didn't.
So the Arch is basically this mega storage device that they actually sent up there in the Tesla that they're just doing as a concept of they're etching all this information on it, and it's supposed to be this mega storage device. So you could store all of humanity in it or something like that. So if you haven't checked out the Arch, please do that.
I did. I don't know why I didn't think of the name, but yeah, it's really cool. You should check it out as far as future-proofing humanity goes, because that's the intention of this, is a way that we can archive data off planet that it's supposed to be protected from the elements and stuff. It's a really cool concept.
And then finally, the last thing, the one that we really care about here on Gonna Geek. Yeah, the flat earthers. They don't think that the launch actually happened.
I'm shocked and appalled, Stargate Pioneer. I cannot believe that the flat earthers do not believe we launched a rocket. Oh man.
You know what?
Yeah.
I think it's true. It's all CGI. We saw the reveal of the CGI studio, right? That's what they were saying, by the way. I don't remember what you call it. I don't know the technical thing, but the whole thing went up in like the capsule, and then the capsule broke apart that's when you ended up seeing the car in space. That housing, right? What's the housing called? Is it
fairing.
just called the fairing? Thank you. When there was a shot where you saw the fairing break apart, apparently the flat earthers believed that was the CGI studio. That's what they called it, the CGI studio, which, as we all know, it was actually filmed on a green screen. So that was not true information.
Elon Musk had fun with that in his press conference afterwards. The physics of being up in space and taking pictures, they look too true because there's no atmospheric continuation in the light at all. So it looks weird because you're not used to seeing it, but that's actually how the picture actually works. So yeah, lots of stuff happened with this. I'm sure we'll be talking about.
In the chat, Suncast brings up, was it the Flat Earth Society or the Flat Earth Society? Because I read about that, and I can't believe, SP, in all of your Flat Earth rants, we've never discovered this, that there are two Flat Earth Societies.
I'm sure. I don't care. I mean, Darwinism at its best. I guess one of them will win out, and then they'll both die out. So I don't care. Anyway, lots of great stuff happened with the Falcon Heavy. It was spectacular. Was it the best ever? No. Saturn V is the best ever. So we're going to get that. We're going to get that with the NASA SLS, and we're going to get that with the SpaceX BFR. I keep on wanting to say what Elon Musk says, and I've been censoring myself the entire time.
It's the big bleeping rocket.
Well, that's one way to say it, but I don't say bleeping. I go ahead and actually say the word. So
the big fracking rocket.
I can't even go there. I mean, he said what it was in Australia, and I have gone with that ever since. Anyway, this is going to be a great story. There's going to be more. I saw a picture. I don't know if it's a fake or not. I haven't done any investigation, but I guess BMW wants to send one of their cars up next. So this is great for Elon Musk. We'll send as many cars up there as we can to pay for these test launches. Why not?
I gotta say that, joking aside, I know that this was not like anything super revolutionary. However, this is the first time in my lifetime that, like in my adult lifetime, I should say, that I can think about public people talking, like regular Joe Schmoes that are in my circles, talking about space stuff. And that is what is so awesome about this. I don't care that it was a gimmick to put a Tesla in space. That gimmick got people talking. I had my dad even mention to me, and we've never talked about anything space related. He goes, "Hey, did you see that awesome rocket launch?" And then we got talking about that. And then he also brought up the BFR. And I'm just like, this is what we need. This is an important part of our society, is the hype train. And I will say this, that I said it on Twitter the day after, but I want to say it on the show, that SP, I do sincerely thank you for coming on here and always keeping us abreast of all of the space stuff, because I do think that it's an important part that my geekery, a lot of geekery is built on, was sci-fi, and that all stemmed from space and stuff we've done in space. So the fact that you keep bringing on the news here each week, I think is beneficial to society, because we need to keep talking about space exploration for us to move forward. Otherwise, you end up with the shuttle situation where nobody cares and it just goes stagnant. So this is what we need, and I'm okay with a couple Teslas in space just to get us talking. So really cool launch, and I don't care that it wasn't the biggest. It was just a gimmick, and it was just a test. I am cool. It got people talking.
Did you see those two boosters landing simultaneously? Yes. Did you see that?
I did.
Oh, if you have, listener, if you have not seen that, I don't know what rock you're hiding under, but if you have not seen that, go ahead and go to SpaceX's YouTube channel, watch the launch. You can actually see on the timeline when those two boosters come back. Watch that part. It's amazing.
Yes, it was an awesome reversed shot. So next up, by the way, that's what the flat earthers were saying, was that shot was a reverse thing. So yeah, anyways, next up in the news, we're going to continue on the space train. And this one came from Chris Farrell. So you know that it's going to be intriguing.
I'm here to gimmick infringe, guys, and I'm infringing on SP Space News gimmick, but I just wanted to bring this one up. It seemed kind of cool when I saw it the other day. So the International Space Station, lots of things going on up there, lots of science projects being worked, things like that. Well, back in January, the site The Verge had reported that the Trump administration was preparing to end U.S. support for the ISS by 2025. The Washington Post followed up and said it has viewed an internal NASA document that outlines the agency's intentions to privatize the station after funding ends in 2024. So that seems to be the planned future for the space station. Just because the U.S. is not looking at doing much funding past 2024, it is not going to be deorbited. They're looking at handing over controls to a private company to continue operations, and then, for lack of a better term, almost lease space or purchase experiments to be done on the International Space Station. The thought is they'll be able to put some of the money that would be going to the space station into the development of future spacecraft to return to the moon. And this is not an unheard of thing we have going on here with the space station. The United States government has been grappling for years with what to do with it. Back in 2014, the Obama administration and Congress extended support through 2024 as kind of a stopgap, but the fate remained unclear after that. So guys, it looks like right now, according to both The Verge and the Washington Post, we're going to have a privatized International Space Station in 2025. Now, there's some officials that are saying that might be a little too soon, maybe pushed out to 2028, as you have already commercial companies such as Orbital, ATK, and SpaceX flying there. Give them a chance to get a little bit more experience and then see if they'd be one of the folks that want to pick up the tab to run the ISS.
I don't have any problems with this at all. I think it would be great. The problem I have with it is it's not really monetizable for the long term. Yeah, you'll get a couple of space tourists in there. You could extend the life of the station for another year, maybe two. But after that, it has to come down. Why? Because you have to protect low Earth orbit from space junk, and then you have to protect the ground from, basically you need to know where this thing's coming down, unlike the Chinese space station that's going to come down on Stephen's house here pretty soon.
Right.
Seems like, I think it's an elegant solution, though. I mean, there's a little bit more life they can squeeze out of it. NASA doesn't want to have to keep footing the bill. So let's offer it up to some of these new space-based companies to give them a chance to run the space station, but still give NASA an opportunity to be involved in some of the science being done there. Because according to some of the stuff that I'd read in the Washington Post today, the plan And what President Trump has asked is for a trip back to the moon right now. And they're looking at possibilities of doing a moon-based space station and things like that, all in preparation to eventually return to Mars. So I think privatizing the space station and taking a little bit of that money that'd be going towards that to start putting towards going back to the moon, I think it's pretty cool. Now, the question is, this is many years down the line. We have no idea how this will happen. Politics will come into play, and a lot of the congressmen and the senators from Florida will come into play, and Texas come into play on this because they have a very big vested interest in NASA and what NASA does. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens here with the future of the International Space Station. But I, for one, am kind of glad to see them looking at potential to stretch it out a few more years, because as a kid growing up, I loved reading stories about Skylab and seeing pictures taken in space. And then the genesis of the International Space Station kind of being an area where people from all over the world could meet to advance mankind and progress science. It was all great stuff. And if we're going to continue doing that with an attempt to return back to the moon, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm of mixed opinion on there, because if it's reached its shelf life, it's reached its shelf life. And I don't always agree with extending things from a nostalgia reason or because they have history. I think that's how we almost paint the box a little bit. So I would like to see us move on to something new if we've reached the end of the shelf life.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like, I was just coughing underneath my breath. Hubble. Yeah, Hubble is actually taking away money for things like James Webb, which is going to be phenomenal. I've been monitoring that. I've talked about that telescope on this show. If it actually launches and gets to its point in the Lagrange point without issue, it's going to be phenomenal what we get back from that. And anything that the Hubble expends in terms of operational costs that takes away from the Webb, it's just not good for the long term. So yeah, eventually the Hubble's got to either be privatized or come down too, one of the two. But as far as the International Space Station goes, when did the first component go up? Like almost 20 years ago now, right? How old is your car?
3 years? 3.5 years?
Right. So just imagine your car at that age, and that's where the space station is right now. Yes, it's been maintained. Yes, it was built to withstand a heck of a lot, but it is still aging. And at some point in time, it's just not going to be usable anymore. It's not going to be maintainable anymore. The Russians ran into this. They had a fire on board their spacecraft. So these things happen, and you just have to minimize that by not letting the equipment get too old. And then also, if by any means NASA has to step back in, that's just money that they take away from a possible moon or Mars mission. And I think that's where we need to go to increase our excitement about space and to have industry really invest themselves into, because there's really no investment to be made in low Earth orbit. We've been there, we've done that. There's not any money to be made other than space tourism. So let's start going other places.
By the way, in the chat, which you can find always on Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time at www.geeks.live, Albert Sims says he has a 98 Ford Ranger. Maybe that will be the next thing in space.
Are you living in it? I mean, is it running completely? Does it break down from time to time? I mean, these are the things you have to worry about.
For sure. So moving on to our extra news section here. You guys know me pretty well by now, and I will ask you this question, and neither of you can answer, but am I lazy?
I plead the fifth.
Go answer honestly.
Yeah, you're incredibly lazy.
I mean, super lazy, which is why I'm not.
Of course, he's not.
It's why I'm not even going to bother to tell you about the next news point. I'm just going to leave it to somebody else.
Digital Soup Podcast, episode 60.
I'm almost hesitant to say this because I found this story of all places on Fox News, and and it's basically though by a guy I think that writes for Tom's Guide. And so, but they've got a new line of phones coming out, it looks like, where they're going to have the decent 6.1 inch screen size, which isn't too much smaller, if I remember right, than the Plus line right now. By a what?
Burger time.
Oh.
Look at that. It looks like the phone's about to just crush this man.
And it's the iPhone X too.
Yep, exactly.
Oh man. But yeah, it's got a nice size screen, but they're going to go back to using an LCD instead of the new OLED from the iPhone X. Going to drop some of the features such as 3D touch. They're going to go back to a standard rectangular battery instead of the new L-shaped batteries that are in the newer phones. It's going to mean a little less battery time, maybe slightly slower performance, but they're looking to put it out as a budget-friendly model. And honestly, with the woes of the iPhone X or 10, they're talking about this summer already, that's going to be discontinued, stop production on it. A lot of people think, oh, it's the end of the world, the 10 failed. I myself kind of think, no, it's just because they're going to get ready to announce the next line of phones. It's kind of in line with their normal product cycle, I guess you'd say, but we'll have to see what happens there. But if they can come out with a nice budget, model phone, that'd be great, except for the fact I just upgraded to an 8 Plus this last week, and now they're going to come out.
Did you? You didn't even tell me, dude.
No, I did. My 6S Plus started giving me a lot of issues. 2 different times I was sitting there, the phone just locked up, couldn't shut it off, couldn't close anything, nothing was responding. It just locked up for like a half hour at a time. And don't know what was going on.
Why is this how I have to find out?
Well, I was taking our own advice and saying, save it for the show.
Exactly.
So yeah, but I think this could be kind of a, I don't want to say a game changer, but something in Apple's lineup that they've really been missing, because for the last few years, Apple is known as being the high-end Apple tax, for lack of a better term. And if they can come
your
in,
new phone's $1,000.
Yeah, and if they can come in with something that's a little more budget friendly, I think they're going to sell pretty decently. Because I think at the end, I know there's a lot of Android fans out there, Samsung, everything else. I know on our network we've got a few people that love their Pixel phones, even Steven. But
that was Digital Soup Podcast episode 60.
So yeah, if you didn't catch that, that's Digital Soup Podcast, proud member of the Gonna Geek Network. Thank you to you, Digital Soup, for letting me use that clip. I did get permission ahead of time, and you can check them out. It's an awesome podcast, weekly show, and sometimes they have extra, and that's at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. So the gist
except when they pimp podcasts that are not on the GonnaGeek.com network. Steven, I believe that is a breach of network contract.
So anyways, we'll deal with that. We'll send that to the lawyers. So the gist of that is that, yeah, there's a rumor to be a new iPhone line coming, that they're going to scale back some of the X features like the screen, but still offer some of those. And I hadn't heard about this, honestly, until they mentioned it on the show. So that's why I wanted to bring it on here and bring their section on here, because it was an interesting discussion to hear them sort of relate their own personal stories to it. As well, I thought that it's time for me to weirdly defend Apple here. Okay, so those of you who aren't listening or aren't familiar with this show, haven't been listening a long time, I often am the first one here to jump on top of Apple. I got to defend Apple. I'm going to point out that Apple taxes is not so much a thing anymore. And I feel like it's my due diligence here to mention it. And I did a little bit of research on this, because over the last couple of years, I've noticed that the Apple tax on phones does not exist when you look at other flagship phones. So, and I'm coming back to the main news story. Here's the little bit of research that I did on this. If we look at the iPhone 8 64 gigabyte device, it was this year right now. I went to the Apple website. It's $699 US. That's $929 Canadian. And if we look at the Pixel 2 64 gigabyte, it's $649. So a little bit less, just a little bit. Pixel 2 64 gigabyte, $899 Canadian. So really very, very close. Now, if we look at the Samsung S8 64 gigabyte, it's $724. And then the S8 Plus, the S8 64 gigabyte Canadian is $1034. So actually more expensive than the iPhone 8, both US and Canada, directly from the website. If we look at the Pixel 2 XL versus the iPhone 8 Plus, that's where things also are a little bit more interesting. The iPhone 8 Plus 64 gigabyte is $799. The Pixel 2 XL 64 gigabyte is $849 US. Canadian pricing is actually reflected the same way, where the Pixel 2 is a little bit more expensive. The Samsung S8 Plus is $824 US, so a little bit more again than the iPhone 8 Plus. And then so it's $824 for the Samsung S8 Plus 64 gigabytes compared to the iPhone 8 Plus 64 at $799. Now, even when you roll back to last year's models, you see a similar structure. The iPhone 7 Plus 32 gigabyte is $669, and the Pixel 1 XL 32 gigabyte is $669. So again, very similar pricing. Now, you're saying, Steven, I understand phone pricing is the same, but you're paying the tax on the warranties. That's not true either. If you look at Google's Preferred Care, it sells for $129 US, and the Apple Care Plus sells for $129 US. Canadian pricing is the same thing. Both of them are flagged at $169. The Samsung Premium Care is actually $11.99 a month. And then the headphone dongles are another example on how Apple scaled back the tax to a degree. Both the Google and the Apple dongle sell for $9 US each. That's the adapter to get the headphone adapter. The chargers, you see a little bit of a difference. Yes, you do. The Pixel charger and cable sells for $35 US, as opposed to on the Apple Store where you have to buy the charger and the cable separate at $19 each. But again, relatively close. So this was just something that I wanted to bring up because the Apple tax, and I'm not saying this to knock on Digital Soup, I'm saying this because this is just what I hear a lot of people say about Apple right now, because for years they were significantly higher, but it's leveled out, and now everybody just has it in their mind that they are charging a premium price. When you look at a current Android phone, one modern Android phone that goes toe-to-toe spec-wise, it's the same thing, and that's why I find this interesting development here very fascinating about the fact that the X might actually be coming back, but as a cheaper version, because with all of those extra features, that might end up making them, unfortunately, make them seem like they are charging a tax again. Because if it's the X as it stands now is a higher tiered phone, but those features, some of those features we're going to start to see slide into the Androids next year. So if they keep this elevated price, that could reinstate that or really support that Apple tax mentality when Apple over the last couple of years has really been in line and unfortunately haven't done a very good job of making people know that the Apple tax doesn't really exist.
Well, the X was an Apple tax. I mean, it was a special phone. It was a one-off, so to speak. If it was a hit, I'm sure they would have continued it, but it wasn't that much of a hit. They just had to do something special for their 10-year thing. But that's not my issue. So I'm driving to work. I'm listening to Digital Soup. Yeah, guys, I'm listening to your show as I'm going to work. And I have one of those yelling into my speakers moments because they say, "Oh, Apple's never done this before." Yeah, they have. Remember the iPhone 5C? Yeah, they did the same thing back then with the 5C. It was a slightly modified phone, maybe some cheaper components to get the phone cheaper for developmental countries. That was really what it was. But it was great for people that wanted to buy cheaper phones for their like middle schoolers. But remember back then, not every 4-year-old had a phone like they do now. So it was a more affordable way to get families into the smartphone market with a reasonable, capable phone. And so they've done this before. This is not new. This
true.
is something that they've done before. So that is my yelling into the speakers moment for Digital Soup.
Jeez, I wasn't trying to call them out. I was trying to bring up their example of because they're not the only one that I hear.
We could do both. There's two of us
you're
here.
So mean. You're so mean, SP. But no, seriously, because I thought their comment encompassed a lot of what I see, and it's unfortunate because I am a guy that regularly recommends people go to Apple because there are users that I think are better with Apples than they are Android. I think there's some people who are better with Android. So it's a shame that there's this chance that Apple might continue to offer that elevated price tag because really they aren't charging more for a modern phone. So Chris, would you care to rebuttal that?
Yeah, you guys are right. Don't forget also Apple put out the iPhone SE, which was kind of a half step with still the smaller screen and current gen tech, but it made it cheaper in price. The problem we're seeing is everyone raced to the top. Apple was the first to go to that premium price point of hitting almost $1,000 for when it came to a phone. And now you're seeing everyone do it. And part of the problem with that is, honestly, go look at the rumored leaks for the Galaxy S9, compare it to the S8. Where's that must-have feature that would make me want to upgrade? We've hit that point where you can have a cell phone if you're a standard user for 2, maybe even 3 years, depending, because there's not the biggest limiter is your battery. Since all the batteries are internal now and you can't use or replace them, when your battery starts to go, you're host. Unless you pay to
that
get
is
it replaced
incorrect.
somewhere.
I keep on hearing that the user cannot replace the battery. I have replaced batteries in iPhone 4s, 4Ss, 5s, and 6s. It is completely possible to replace the battery.
Let me rephrase that, SP. It's difficult to do so in many phones when you go and check the iFixit scores for repairability, or when you go watch the Jerry Rig Everything YouTube channel when he does a teardown. Unless you are comfortable dealing with teardowns and small electric components, for a standard user, finding a good battery online that isn't just cheap OEM knockoffs to replace things with, and B, doing it yourself, having to get hair dryers and glue guns and put more glue back down in place, and then keep your phone being waterproof in today's world, it's not easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
The waterproof thing I'll give you, but you don't, the glue thing and the hairdryer thing with the screen on iPhones, you don't need to do that.
An average user cannot do it. An average user cannot do it. A technically inclined user can. And that's where I side with Chris on this, because a consumer replaceable battery is one that most consumers can do. They slide off the back, they pop the battery in. Most users cannot do what you do, is my opinion. So that's why I side with Chris. Not only just because of that, but because I can't believe that you just badmouth Digital Soup like that on this episode. Jeez.
Shame.
I had beef with the soup. The soup was bad.
Was it beefy soup?
So anyways, there's your extra for this week. Please do check out Digital Soup Podcast. Digital Soup, thank you very much for letting me share that clip. I knew you didn't know which way I was going with it, but seriously, I hadn't heard about this till then, so that just goes to show you.
Ways, so,
it just goes to show you how awesome Digital Soup is. They have a lot of great geeky content each week, so check out Digital Soup Podcast on the Gonna Geek Network. But let's go ahead and roll into SP's Space Symposium.
You probably know SP from various shows on the Gonna Geek Network, but did you know that outside of podcasting, he's actually the director of the secret government space organization called SNASA? You're about to hear him declassify some Area 51 level secrets in the segment he calls SP's Space Symposium.
Hello, I'm Director SP. We're going to be talking about my Space Symposium this week. And I apologize to the user, the listener. We don't normally go wall-to-wall space, but we did this week just because there's so much really cool space stuff. So my Space Symposium is actually really cool too. So we just talked about Elon Musk launching a Tesla Roadster into asteroid orbit. Actually, we didn't talk about the orbit. Yeah, we don't know where the orbit's going to be. This was another case that I'm going to talk about today where they didn't know exactly what the orbit was going to be, and that is Vanguard 1C, which was launched on March 17th, 1958. We're coming up on the anniversary, yes, the 60th anniversary of this thing going into space. It was launched from Cape Canaveral, and they thought it was going to go into a certain orbit, and it was going to be up there for 2,000 years. Now, it hit the orbit, but unfortunately, they didn't know anything about what was up in the deep space, basically. The orbit is 350 miles by about 2,000 miles, so it's a big elliptical orbit around the Earth. And they didn't know what atmospheric drag was going to do. They didn't know about solar wind. They didn't know about the gravitation, the different gravitational pulls. So they just didn't know. And once they calculated all of that, because the thing just kept on going and going and going and going and going, like, it's only going to be up there for 240 years. But it's still going to be up there for 240 years. So the fourth man-made satellite ever to be launched into space is still up there. Everything else has been deorbited. The first one, Sputnik 1 and 2, and the Explorer that we talked about last time, it is all deorbited. This is still up there with its upper stage. So it is the longest man-made orbit, a man-made object that is still in space. That's what we're talking about. Vanguard 1C. How heavy is this thing, right? So it's been up there for a while. How heavy is it?
How heavy is it, SP?
It's 3.2 pounds. That's all. It's 3.2 pounds. And you know what that equates to? about less than 3 cylinders of a 2018 GMC Sierra 4x4.
Oh, how did I know this was going to happen?
It always
I should have
happens.
known better.
3 cylinders. That's it. If you hold the cylinders in your hand, it is lighter than that.
Really? That's light. That's insane. I'm
Yeah.
surprised it's that light.
And it's small. It's only 6.4 inches across. Interestingly enough, this was the third attempt to launch because the first attempt blew up on the pad and the second one didn't go either. So this is the third one. That's why it's Vanguard 1C. The original one, interestingly enough, the blew up on the pad, but then the fairing, the thing to separate it from the upper stage actually popped. The spring popped. So the satellite actually was blown clear of the explosion, and it still exists. It's at the Smithsonian out in Virginia. So if you want to see this thing, the original one, not the third one that's in space, you can go see that at the Space Museum of the Smithsonian. So that's pretty cool. What was the mission of this thing? Something that was so small, something that was so light? Well, it was to test the launch capabilities of a 3-stage launch vehicle. It was the first time that it had ever happened. And does that remind you of something that happened last week? Just to test the capabilities of the Falcon Heavy. So it's very similar in that
Can't think of anything.
aspect. Yep.
No, me neither.
You guys are just flat earthers, aren't you?
Shh, it's flat
Is-
like this.
Again, a couple episodes ago, is there any other type of Earth?
So which flat earth society are you guys from? Okay. So the other mission was to test the effects of the environment on a satellite and the effects in Earth's orbit. We talked about that, how it's going for 240 years versus 2,000 years. And it was used to obtain measurements through orbital analysis. And also it was the first satellite to use solar power. So it was the first one to last quite a bit, and it did last a bit. It lasted almost 7 years because it had a set of mercury batteries that generated 10 megawatts of power that powered a 108 megahertz transmitter that transmitted all the data down. And it had 6 wiry antennas that came out that were 30 centimeters long, and it had 2 thermometers, basically thermostats, that measured the interior temperature over the course of about 16 days to track the effectiveness of the thermal protection of the satellite as well. Because remember, satellite design was just a hit or miss thing back then too. We were just making our best guesses because we needed measurements in order to do better. Some of the scientific discoveries out of this mission: it was the first orbiting satellite to have solar energy, so they proved that. That's good. It returned a wealth of information on the air density at all different stages of the atmosphere and temperature ranges, and also it sensed meteor impact as well, because there was a big concern that there was a lot of micrometeors that would impact, and not so much. I mean, there is some, but not as much as you might think. And it get this, guys, it maintained an orbit so stable that cartographers were able to more accurately redraw the maps of islands in the Pacific Ocean. I gotta look more into this. That's amazing. Cool. It is, isn't it? And basically have you ever guys heard that the Earth is actually pear-shaped instead of round? Have you guys heard that?
No.
Okay, well, the Earth is more pear-shaped than round-shaped, actually. I mean, it looks like a ball, but it's heavier on the bottom than on the top.
So what you're saying is that the flat earthers were right. It's not round.
That is correct. It is not round.
Yes.
It's pear-shaped.
So what you're saying is that in between all of the scientists that said the Earth is round and all of the scientists that said the Earth is not round, which are not scientists, they're just flat earthers, the flat earthers are more accurately right.
All I got to say, Stephen, is this podcast is going to go up on the internet and YouTube, and you should be careful on what you agree to.
That's true. By the way, I'm not a flat earther. All of my flat earther jokes are completely jokes, and flat earthers, you are a detriment to our society. Continue.
I can't wait until we get all of our flat earther hate mail sent to js@gonnageek.com. Remember, send all of your hate mail to js@gonnageek.com.
Okay, well, this was the mission that discovered that the Earth was more pear-shaped than round. So thank you, Vanguard 1C. I talked about the history already, and by the way, the 60th anniversary is coming up in March. Well, the 50th anniversary was special because all the original workers that were still alive at that point, and the Naval Research Laboratory workers and the NASA workers, they all gathered for a week-long commemorative meeting, and they actually ended the meeting with a flyby of the satellite over their heads, and they could actually see the satellite through telescopes and everything. So that was pretty cool. I have no idea if anything's planned for the 60th, but I know the 50th was pretty special, and it was in Washington, D.C. on the National Academy of Sciences ground. So that was pretty cool. Anyways, this was a big example of another great test launch 60 years ago. So Elon, you took 60 years from Vanguard 1 to get to the point where we have 2 boosters coming down simultaneously. That's great. The last transmission from the satellite was in May of 1964. So that's how long it lasted. And it's still up there. It's still ticking. Every few hours, it's orbiting the Earth. So it's all great. It's all cool. And that is my SP Space Symposium. By the way, Steven, you got to tone down that intro. You're going to give away my mojo. That's not good. I got to fly under the radar. I can't be
His mojo.
I can't be out there like that, man. You're going to give away all my secrets.
What, your SNASA?
My SNASA secrets, yeah.
I know, but we've been trying to get you to admit them for a long time on here, so I figured if I made an intro for
USA.
Okay, but joking aside, why is this thing still up?
Are you serious?
Why are you still up? That's what I'm asking about you. Why are you still up?
I don't know. I must have had some late caffeine after dinner. I have no idea.
Seriously, thanks so much for telling us all about this week. And thank you very much for educating us on more space stuff. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I do genuinely appreciate it every time you talk about it, because I think it's a very important part of us in our society to talk about all of this awesome space stuff.
So, Chris, what do you think I'm going to talk about next time?
Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast Gonna Geek. It's multi-year mission to explore brave worlds and share new podcasts with everyone. I don't know. I lost it. Sorry.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Well, we're not going to talk about Voyager next time. That's sometime in the future. What we're going to talk about next time is Pioneer 3, which was scheduled to be the first lunar flyby. But guess what? It was a failure. So we're going to talk about the failure of Pioneer 3.
Wait. When we talk about Voyager, does that mean we have to talk about Voyager and Star Trek the Motion Picture? Because I can't handle that.
I'm going to talk about Voyager. You're going to talk about Voyager. We already talked about this off air.
Can we talk about Star Trek Voyager?
You can talk about that. I'm all about the Tom Paris.
Awesome. So there you go. That's going to take us towards the end of the show. Before we wrap up, we'll just go ahead and remind you that we are part of the Gonna Geek Network. The Gonna Geek Network is a plethora of different geeky contents in contents. Contents is a word, and it's supposed to be used in that context. And if you want to check out all of this awesome geeky content, you can check that out at gonnageeknetwork.com, including the latest episode of a show called Better Podcasting. You might have seen Stargate Pioneer and myself over on Better Podcasting, but if that was a downfall to Better Podcasting, which really it was our number one con, you'll be pleased to know that things are a-changing over at Better Podcasting, and you can check out episode 117, where Steven and SP are out. In this week's episode of Better Podcasting, there are some new hosts who run down all the fine details of podcasting, such as art sizes, MP3 tag information, and a whole bunch of other fine details. If you are a podcaster, you should check this out, because there are some awesome things on here that there are specifications that SP and I never got around to in our run of Better Podcasting, but definitely these hosts are much better than us. You can check that out at gonnageeknetwork.com.
It's over.
Chris, do you have anything that you want to plug or promote?
There's always a ton of live content that's streamed over on Geeks.live. So head on over to Geeks.live. You can see a nice little calendar at the bottom of the page that'll give you the streaming schedule for all of our live content. So, hey, you like free stuff being broadcast on the internet? We're not going to charge you like CBS All Access to see Star Trek Discovery. We're going to let you come watch all our content for free.
Absolutely. And by the way, I want to say that this Sunday, usually I'm not around Sundays, but this Sunday I was around and I had a chance to sit and watch a couple of the live streams that were on there on Sunday. And it was a nice, relaxing way to spend my Sunday. And if I was around more, I would definitely watch more often because it's always fun just to kick back, do what you're doing, but also have the streams going of the Gonna Geek Network. So check that out. That's geeks.live.
Yeah, Sundays we actually have 4 shows usually. There's All Things Good and Nerdy, there's Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., there's Starling Tribune, and there's Pop X Cast. So come on by geeks.live and you can be entertained all Sunday long.
SP, do you have anything else that you want to plug or promote?
Obviously, I'm wearing my USA hockey jersey. The Olympics are on right now. Seriously, guys, these athletes have done phenomenal things in their lives. They've basically dedicated their lives to be there. They are the best athletes that the world can provide. Give them a view or two throughout the week. I discovered that NBC is doing a special Roku app, and I believe it's also on the Apple app, is NBC Sports, where you can replay all the different Olympic events and stuff like that. So if you haven't checked out the Olympics, I do implore you to, no matter where you are in the world. I know if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's summer down there, and in the Northern Hemisphere is winter. So I know it's a little off for you guys down in the Southern Hemisphere, but it's just amazing competitiveness, and you really should check it out just because it's been going on for, well, thousands of years, basically, going back to ancient Greece. So yeah, let's give these guys and gals our attention for a little bit and just enjoy the spectacle.
Awesome. So there you go. That is going to take us to the end of episode 227 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I'm Steven John Drew saying I successfully reverse engineered that SpaceX CGI.
And I'm Director SP saying thanks a lot, guys, for letting me geek out about space.
And I'm Chris, and I still say Steven's pants are alive.
My pants are on fire. I'll admit that.
Yeah, because you're a liar.
Bye. See you later.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of the Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.